Good morning, everybody. Guten Morgen for our friends from Germany, from Europe. We are now starting the webinar and the launching of the new standard, the new GRI Universal Standard. I want to thank everybody that joining us this morning. I must say to our colleagues from the GRI that this is the new Jewish holiday in few days. New year, and some of the people are busy with their families and the arrangement and trying to finish all the dinners preparations. However, it's also a good time to mark, I think, 25 years for the GRI that was recently published at 25 years of working and supporting sustainability reporting, and even us, Good Vision, we are celebrating this year the 20th year. So we started almost at the time when sustainability reporting was still very small and very difficult to implement. We try to share the experience and to share the know-how regarding the new standard that will come to be a mandatory one as of January 23 in 3 months. We have today, Brigitte, people from all sectors, from the regulators, from the Israeli Stock Exchange and the Stock Authority, the regulators. And we have from the business sector, from high tech, from different, from hospitality, from food, from consuming goods, basically across all sectors. We are trying to give the floor to lessons that were learned on the ground from different companies around the world. In Israel, and we have few clients that are preparing now the new standard report, but it was not published yet. It will be published very soon, so it will be nice to hear from the European experience. You can use the chat if you want to ask questions during the session, and we'll do our best to answer. And if not, we'll do it after the session. I will really appreciate if you can all open your camera so we can have a real interactive session. And we also will give a few links that you can follow up later. Just to say that here at Good Vision is the sustainability arm of Grant Thornton. We are welcome everybody, and I wish a good learning morning for all of us. Before we start with the session by the GRI, I would like my colleague for many years, Mr. Momo Maadav, the CEO of Maala. Maala is the leading organization in promoting ESG and CSR in Israel, to say a few words. Momo, please.
Hi, so thank you, Ivry, and good morning, all. Hi to the GRI team. Really a pleasure to be here. I would say that I think that we're kind of in a crossroads now with all the standards for reporting being pushed upwards, both in terms of the voluntary standards by the GRI and other bodies. And at the same time, we see that regulators, both in Europe, in the US, and even in Israel, are looking into making the standards more unified, more, I would say, allowing stakeholders to really understand what are the sort of various indicators actually saying, and how to compare between companies, whether those are companies in the same sectors and whether those are companies from different sectors. I would say there's quite a loud call for the standard and the reporting to be more solid, more concrete, more, I would say, transparent to stakeholders. And I think that there is an issue. And just as a very short example, some of you might know that we're doing an annual kind of lookup at the data for philanthropy, for corporate philanthropy in Israel. For the GRI team in Israel, it's obligatory by law to report as part of the annual financial report on the amount of corporate philanthropy. But when we drill down to the ESG reports, and we did kind of a quick sort of check of the companies who are the largest corporate donors in Israel, we were surprised, and not for the positive, to see that really a few, I think one or two, actually disclosed the percentage or more accurate data on where the sort of the contribution is going to. And that's a topic that's been around for, I think, quite a while. It seems as if it's quite should be quite easy to report on. And I dare say that when we drill down to more complex issues, obviously climate change or social data, things are even getting more complicated in terms of understanding and seeing kind of a more comparable, unified kind of way to report on companies' ESG performance. So I think this is where we're standing. I think it's a call to action for all companies. And with that, I will sort of pass it back to Ivry and to you to sort of lead us forward where we're heading. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Momo. It's been a pleasure. I would like now to ask Brigitta Horva from the GRI. Brigitta is in charge of the GRI community. She previously held various positions in corporate social responsibility and communication, helping organizations to achieve their social responsibility ambitions. She is also in charge of the Middle East and Israel, which is a good person to start the conversation. Later, it will be followed by Pierre, and I will introduce him later. So, Brigitta, I hope that the presentation will be well, and the floor is yours. Please, we can start the session.
Thank you very much, Ivry, and thank you for the introduction as well. So my name is Brigitta Horvat, and I'm here today together with two of my colleagues, Piers Horner and Laura Espinach. Piers will be presenting later on digital reporting and covering also the GRI certified software and tools. And Laura is head of technical development in our standards team. So she will be a great help to address all questions in connection to the GRI standards. And now I will try to share my screen. I hope it will work, and please give me feedback. If it's Is it working now? I don't hear you, Ivry.
We can see it. If you can put it in presentation mode, I think that would be best.
Yes. The only thing that I will try to do it. Just a minute. Now is it working, Laura?
Not yet. No, it's gone now. We can't see anything now.
Yeah, I don't have the option to.
Now it's better. Yeah, you can see it big. And you can see, you can also push the beginning tab. Yeah, from beginning. Yes.
But do you still see the notes?
No, but now when it's big enough, so we don't see the notes. So it's okay.
Okay. So is it okay now? I will go on with this. I'm sorry. I just have these technical issues. All right.
Okay, Brigitta, after we overcome this obstacle, I just want to, as we say in the preparation session, the Israeli market is actually grown exponentially in sustainability reporting for many years. It was stable number of 25, 30, 35 companies. In the last 2 years, we see like every year it's doubled itself. So I guess that this year, with all the new reports, we will probably come to 100. And I guess that next year, maybe it will be 150 even. So actually, the market is emerging as we speak. It's a great opportunity. We really like your participation with us, and we all share the same goal to achieve a good, professional, transparent, sustainable reporting. So the floor is yours. Thank you. We are looking forward.
Thank you very much, Ivry. So I will go on with the presentation. So first, I would like to give a high-level introduction about GRI and the fast-evolving reporting landscape, and then provide an update on the revised universal standards and also the new sector standards. So I will also address some questions we gathered from organizations that are already using the new universal standards. Basically, we created a poll to get an understanding whether are you familiar, the audience is familiar with the GRI standards, but I'm not sure whether the poll can be run now. Can you please help with run the poll?
Yes, 1 minute.
Hopefully it'll work. Yeah, so now I see the question. So please put your answers. So to what extent are you familiar with the new GRI standards? All right, so 20% very familiar. Okay, answers are still coming in. And 50%, so around half of the audience is only to a small extent familiar. So I will, I hope we can provide more clarity on some issues. Thank you. You can end the poll now. So now we can move on to the short introduction about GRI. Do you see my screen, the slide? Good. So who are we? GRI was born out of the need of transparency, and how could businesses and investors improve corporate behavior. So GRI was founded 25 years ago, and actually GRI celebrates its quarter-of-a-century anniversary this month. So it's been a long journey, and from pioneering beginnings, GRI now offers a global disclosure framework to support companies to be transparent about their sustainability performance and accountable for their impacts on the world around them. So GRI helps any business, irrespective of sector size and geographic location, to disclose its sustainability impacts by providing highly relevant insight for companies and all their stakeholders. So not just for investors, but for the society as a whole. Sustainability reporting through the GRI standards provides the high quality environmental, social, and governance, so the so-called ESG data that market regulators and investors require. So we set the constantly review our standards, and as we did with the universal standards as well, to make sure they remain relevant and fit for purpose. So let me share with you some data and numbers showing our impact. The GRI standards are the most widely used sustainability reporting standards in the world. So more than 11,000 companies globally report with GRI each year. 73% of the world's largest 250 companies use the GRI standards for their sustainability reporting. And GRI is the most widely referenced ESG disclosure instrument by governments, regulators, and stock exchanges around the world. 75 capital market policies reference GRI explicitly. And the GRI standards were downloaded more than 673,000 times in 2021, which means a 52% increase compared to the previous year. And now, after a brief overview of GRI, let me share with you some insight into recent global developments in reporting. So the two biggest developments in the sustainability reporting landscape are the CSRD in the European Union and the creation of ISSB globally. First, about the development of the ESRS, the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. The GRI has worked with EFRAG to provide technical input to the development of the ESRS. And the draft ESRS is underpinned by this principle of double materiality, reporting on both the financial considerations of sustainability issues and of the external impacts of a reporting entity, of which GRI is a strong advocate. So EFRAG, the European Financial Reporting Advisory Group, had a public consultation on the draft ESRS exposure drafts that run until the 8th of August this year. And GRI has made a technical mapping of the ESRS compared to the GRI standards. And this mapping is GRI's formal contribution to the public consultation on the first set of the ESRS drafts. So we also provided high-level observations as well as detailed advice on each draft standards, but it builds on feedback provided to EFRAG as part of GRI's engagement in the development process. And in addition, the GRI standards team is actively working with the various working groups under EFRAG to ensure alignment and high quality standards. And we see that while good progress has been made, the ESRS will benefit from deeper alignment with the GRI standards to ease the transition for the EU companies that already report with GRI. And GRI is concerned with the level of detail and granularity of the draft ESRS, and also urged EFRAG to make clear references wherever it's possible to the GRI standards when concepts or disclosures, guidance have been borrowed from GRI. What we know is that the first set of standards is to be adopted by June 2023, with reporting mandatory effective 2024. And that means that the first reports based on the new ESRS will need to be published in 2025. And second, moving to the global developments, we are seeing the strengthening of financial standards to include more disclosure of sustainability-related financial information. And this is being driven and drafted by the IFRS Foundation's newly formed ISSB. And their standards are geared towards providing information relevant to the financial impact of sustainability issues on the business itself and within investors as the primary audience. So this development recognizes the benefits of incorporating sustainability considerations into financial disclosures. And it's also a positive step to bring other frameworks that focus on investor needs, such as the SASB standard and the IR framework under one roof. And GRI announced as an MOU with the IFRS Foundation, and this commits the two organizations to seek to coordinate work programs and standard setting activities as they recognize the need to further harmonize the sustainability reporting landscape. And the IFRS sustainability disclosure standards and the GRI standards can be viewed as two interconnected reporting pillars that address distinct perspectives, which can together form a comprehensive corporate reporting regime for the disclosure of sustainability information. The IFRS will commence with two prototype standards, the climate-related and general ESG disclosures, and the exposure draft for the general sustainability-related disclosures was out for public comment until the 29th of July. And finally, continuing internationally, we see these developments being further reflected in a growing list of mandatory sustainability reporting requirements being introduced by governments, regulators, stock exchanges across the world. And now I would like to move on to double materiality to provide a bit better understanding of this term. You might be familiar with this term or the two-pillar approach. So it was first introduced by the European Commission in 2019 and basically states that companies need to understand and to report both their impacts on the world as well as how sustainability impacts will affect the financial health and their ability to create value as a company. And this means going forward that organizations will need to consider materiality from two perspectives: the impact of sustainability issues on the enterprise value of the company, and which is the financial related sustainability reporting, and the economy and environmental and social impact of the company's activities on all stakeholders, which to those familiar with the GRI standards know that this is our exclusive focus, impact reporting for a multi-stakeholder audience. And we believe that each perspective needs to be considered in its own right and as well as in combination. And on one hand, we see that financial accounting and reporting is no longer sufficient to assess long-term value creation. And there's a need to improve business reporting and sustainability disclosures to meet current and future challenges. And on the other hand, the growing social awareness of environmental and social issues means that a much wide range of stakeholders demands a much wide range of information. So these two complementary initiatives that are moving us towards more comprehensive reporting. And now we came to our main topic, the GRI standards. But before I dive deeper into the standards, let me share some thoughts on the reporting itself. So sustainability reporting, how we view it, it's about disclosing openly economic, environmental, and social impacts and its positive or negative contributions towards sustainable development. And while it demonstrates organizational commitment to sustainable development, it also enables comparison of organizational performance over time. And by identifying, measuring, and reporting their material sustainability topics, companies can better manage these issues, leading to improved performance, and it also helps organizations develop new sustainability strategies and activities. So transparency through reporting on these factors drive the sustainability of the individual organization and, of course, ultimately the global economy. And what is our approach when setting the global best practice for reporting sustainability performance? So the GRI standards are developed and issued by the GSSB, GRI's independent standard setting body. And we have defined different constituency groups we work with to ensure multi-stakeholder input throughout the whole process of creating and updating the GRI standards. This network extends across geographies, stakeholder groups, and sustainability themes. So we work with across the business, civil society, investment institutions, labor, mediating institutions, academia. And this approach ensures the participation and expertise of diverse stakeholders in the development of our standards. A very high level overview of the benefits of the GRI standards. So what are the four main benefits? Basically, it's the policy integration and referencing I already mentioned. It's flexible and future-proof structure. And the GRI standards provides a global common language, a framework that meets all reporting needs, and its credibility and robustness. The GRI standards are aligned with international instruments like the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, the OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises, OECD due diligence guidance for responsible business conduct, and the ILO standards, the ICG, and global governance principles. And importantly, the GRI standards are compatible with other frameworks, as you can see on the screen, such as the SDGs, the TCFD, the CDP, the SASB, and other frameworks. I would like to point to give you information that these linkage documents are available on our website, and you can download them on the GRI's website. And now to the changes of the universal standards. So they were launched in October of 2021. And with that, the GRI standards remain a modular system of interconnected standards that allow organizations to publicly report their impacts in a transparent and structured way. The GRI standards now consist of 3 series of standards that allow organizations to publicly report their impacts in a transparent way. So the GRI standards now consist of 3 series: the revised universal standards, the new sector standards, and the adopted topic standards. You can see them with the green, the brown, and purple cover. All 3 revised universal standards, the GRI 1, 2, and 3, have changes in their content and in their titles, including their numbering. The universal standards apply to all organizations and guide reporters on how to report with the standards. They contain requirements and reporting principles that all organizations must comply with to report in accordance with the GRI standards. The universal standards also provide guidance on the process of reporting and contain universally applicable disclosures. Now, the new sector standards form also part of the set. They provide information for organizations about their likely material topics based on their sector's most significant impacts, and help the organization identify a disclosure disclosures to report information about these topics. The topic standards, as in the current version of the standards, contain disclosures for the organization to report information about its impacts in relation in particular topics. For example, waste, emission, occupational health and safety, tax. The organization selects these topic standards according to the list of material topics it has determined using GRI 3. There are now 31 topic standards. And the topic standards, it's important to mention, that are no longer organized into the 200, 300, and 400 series. Moving to the universal standards. So the universal standards include the GRI 1 Foundation, GRI 2 General Disclosures, and GRI 3 Material Topics. And the universal standards are the first reporting standards that fully reflect the due diligence expectations for sustainability impacts, including human rights, as set out in intergovernmental instruments by the UN and the OECD. The revised universal standards will be effective for information published after 1st of January 2023. And now I will like to move on to the key revisions for the sake of time. So what were the key revisions in GRI 1 Foundation 2021? So the GRI 1 outlines the purpose of the GRI standards and clarify key concepts and explains how to use the GRI standards. It lists the 9 requirements that an organization must comply with to report in accordance with the GRI standards. It also specifies the key concepts and the reporting principles that are fundamental to good quality reporting. So the revised universal standards includes a revised approach to reporting in accordance with the GRI standards, and there is now only one way to report in accordance, replacing the previous core and comprehensive options. An organization can still report with reference to the GRI standards if it cannot comply with all the requirements for reporting in accordance, and if its use is selected GRI standards as part of their content to report information about specific topics for specific purposes, for example, to comply with a reporting regulation on climate change. Also, key concepts were introduced that lay out the foundation of sustainability reporting. They comprise impact, material topics, due diligence, and stakeholder. Also, reporting principles were revised to focus on the quality and presentation of information, such as accuracy, balance, sustainability, context, verifiability, clarity, comparability, completeness, and timeliness. And what to do if an organization wants to comply with the GRI standards and report in accordance. So all these steps, all these 9 steps that can be seen on the slides are required throughout the reporting process. So to apply the reporting principles, report disclosures in GRI 2 to determine material topics, also report disclosures from the GRI topic standards for each material topic, publish a GRI content index, and provide statement of use, and of course, notify GRI. What were the key revisions in GRI 2? General disclosures. So GRI 2 contains disclosures relating to information about an organization's reporting practices, activities and workers, governance strategy, policies, and stakeholder engagement. So this information gives insight into the organization's profile and scale and help in providing a context for understanding an organization's impacts. The disclosures in GRI 102 have been revised in GRI 2, and new disclosures were developed on policy commitments for responsible business conduct, including respect for human rights and due diligence, and how these commitments are embedded in the organization. It also includes information on the grievance mechanisms and other remediation processes in place, and engagement with affected and potentially affected stakeholders. Also, governance-related disclosures have been consolidated and reviewed to incorporate emerging best practices, including the ICG and global governance principles. And now moving to GRI 3, material topics. This presents a revised approach to materiality and provides guidance and disclosures on the due diligence processes for identifying actual and potential negative impacts on the economy, environment, and people, and including now impacts on their human rights across the organization's activities and also business relationships. And also provides guidance on how to prioritize the impacts based on their significance and severity in the case of negative human rights impacts to determine material topics for reporting. Also contains revised disclosures for reporting the process by which an organization has determined its material topics. GRI 3 provides step-by-step guidance on how to determine material topics, and you can see the 4 steps on the slide, and it also explains how the sector standards are used in this process. So if you look at the slides, the first 3 steps relate to the organization's ongoing identification and assessment of its impacts. And these ongoing steps allow the organization to actively identify and manage its impacts as they evolve, as well as to identify new impacts as they arise. So these 3 steps are conducted independently of the sustainability reporting process, but they inform step 4, where the organization prioritizes its most significant impacts or material topics for reporting. Following these steps are not a requirement. However, in order to report in accordance with the GRI standards, an organization is required to determine its material topics based on its most significant impacts on the economy, environment, and people. A few sentences on the effect on the topic standards. So the topic standards, sorry, I moved back. Topic standards are adopted to ensure consistency with the revised universal standards, and changes focus only on those that are necessary to ensure there are no contradictions with the revised universal standards. But the disclosures haven't changed, and the information to be reported remains also the same. 3 topic standards will be withdrawn when the revised universal standards come into effect, and as their content was updated and incorporated in the revised universal standards. About the GRI sector standards, so the introduction of the new sector standards is to make the quality and consistency of reporting by organizations within the same sectors better, and also more complete, because it consolidates in one place all the topics that are likely to be material for an organization in a particular sector, and when taking into consideration the sector's most significant impacts. So it's worth pointing out that it's not an objective of a sector standard to develop entirely new reporting. The starting point is always to point back to disclosures that already exist in the topic standards. I would like to give a quick update on our sector program. So the GRI sector program will develop sectors in 40 sectors to develop standards for 40 sectors, starting with those that have the highest impact. Some are completed. So we have, for example, launched already the oil and gas, the coal and the agriculture, aquaculture and fishing sector standards. And next ones are the mining, the food and beverage and textile and apparel sector standards. You can check our sector development programs on our website. I will put later the link in the chat.
Rita, do you have a timetable for this new sector?
Yes, we do. We will share it with you in the chat. I will put the timetable in the chat later in the presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, so next to the sector standard, GRI also works to revise some topic standards. For example, the biodiversity standard, to ensure they are relevant and up to date. The development of these standards is now a high priority at GRI. So that was the very short introduction of the key revisions. So it's important to note that GRI doesn't interpret the standards nor does it review the content of the reports in order to remain neutral as an independent standard setter. But we have collected some questions we got from early users of the standards, and also from organizations that are transitioning to the new standards. So let me share the most frequently asked ones to help you in this journey. Maybe some of them have already been addressed in the Q&A function by Laura, but we will try to address those in the Q&A session later. I will address one or two among these questions. So if we get this question, if you use the GRI standards, will this be enough to comply with CSRD? So content of the European standards is still under development, and their materiality approach is different from GRI's in a sense that they are looking at adopting double materiality approach, including financial materiality. And for now, it's too early to say if using GRI standards will be sufficient to comply with the European directive, but it will certainly help. Next one, can I use the Universal Standards 2016 after 1st of January 2023? So any reports published after 1st of January 2023 that use the 2016 Universal Standards won't be able to claim that they report in accordance with the GRI standards. Organizations that cannot meet the requirements to report in accordance with the 2021 Universal Standards are encouraged to report with reference to the GRI standards. And to report with reference, organizations are required to publish a GRI content index indicating which disclosures from any of the available GRI standards have been reported. We receive many questions around material topics and whether organizations need to redo their materiality assessment. So basically the concept of material topics in the revised universal standard still uses the criterion of significance of the impacts as outlined in the GRI 101 Foundation 2016. So therefore, an organization that has determined its material topics based on the significance of its economic, environmental, and social impacts, as required by GRI 101, is well prepared to comply with the requirements in GRI 1 Foundation 2021. And also important to mention, if a sector standard is available that applies to the organization is required to review each topic described in the applicable sector standards and determine whether it is material for the organization or not. I think now, for sake of time and to leave time for digital reporting, which is very interesting topics as well, I will go on with the practical tips, but you can consult the Universal Standards FAQ document on GRI website, and you will find all the answers to these questions.
Thank you. Brigitta, there is a question from one of the participants, from Noah from Amdocs. It's a big software billing company. She asked about the double materiality. Very challenging. The format, this mapping will be presented to the report in such a way that is comparable between the report of different companies. Even sustainability consultants are discussing on how to present this exercise in the report. Do you have any sample best practices to suggest? Thanks. This is from you, or you want that you can take the questions in the end of the session. It's also okay.
I think we will address these questions at the end of the session. Okay. If it's fine with you.
Yeah, it's okay. Great. So we can move on.
Good. So some practical tips I wanted to share. So you can make use of a GRI content index template, which can be downloaded for free from the GRI's website. We got this. So we, based on our experience with reports that are already using the revised standards, so these practical tips probably will help you with your reporting and with your transition. For example, we suggest that organizations now do not include the statement of use on the first page of the index. So they should include the statement of use on the first page of the index and not somewhere else in the report like they used to. Please remember there is no core and comprehensive option when reporting in accordance with the GRI standards now. And also, as mentioned earlier, 3 topic standards have been integrated into GRI to general disclosures, so no need to report separately on these topics. Also wanted to give you some ideas how we support organizations and reporters to transition to the universal standards. So there are many free resources available for you on GRI's website. So there's a short introduction to the GRI standards that provides an overview of the updated system of the standards, a leaflet and a flyer, which provide an overview of the key changes. And the FAQ I already mentioned, which we strongly encourage you to consult if you have questions about the revised standards. And we also have an Excel mapping tool, mapping the changes to the disclosures between GRI Universal Standards 2021 and GRI Universal Standards 2016. And furthermore, there are online training options also available with the course added to the GRI Academy, transitioning to the GRI Standards 2021 update course. So please check the GRI Academy courses webpage for regular updates. And finally, from my side, the areas we support organizations, as mentioned, we have the GRI Academy with trainings, we have reporting services, alignment checks, reporting tools, and of course the GRI Academy, the GRI community, sorry, our global membership network. And now I would like to hand over to my colleague Piers, who will talk more about our reporting services and also provides insights to digital reporting. I will run the slides for you, Piers.
Thank you very much, Brigitte. I think you can just leave it here just for a moment on this slide. Everybody can hear me okay? Number one, great, thank you. And just to check, Ivry, how are we doing on time? How long do I have?
We need to finish in past.
Okay, fine.
We have 40 minutes almost.
Okay,
maybe
fine,
I will just say that to present you, if it's okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Excellent. So Pierre is the senior manager for CST at GRI. He joined the organization in 2021. The CST program is the only authorized route by which software developers can obtain certification and licensing to use the GRI standards. In commercial digital products and tools, before joining GRI, Pierre works for 10 years in the UK central government, mostly in the Department of Environment. DEFRA.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I must say you as an introduction that Israel is also the startup nation. We have maybe outside the US, we have the largest number of startups and technological companies, even that we have many traded in NASDAQ and in other stock exchange. In the last 2 or 3 years, we see here an inflation of new startups talking about sustainability reporting, giving resources to ESG practitioners, to investors. It's very interesting, and I think that in that aspect, your remarks is very relevant to because we all ask ourselves which is the relevant tool, which is the effective tool. Yeah. So please share with us.
Thank you very much, and very much recognize that. And it was wonderful to hear at the start, Ivry, where you're quoting your numbers in terms of the kind of growth of sustainability reporting in Israel as well. Both the sort of sense of there being a very thriving startup community within Israel, looking at digital tools and sort of tools for reporters, as well as the growth of reporting itself, I think are very positive things. It's great to hear, basically. I think, Brigitte, you might have stopped sharing. I can't see the slides anymore, but can everybody else see the slides? Yeah, okay, cool. Get back there now. Great. So yes, hello everybody. Really great to be talking to you this morning. As Ivry says, my name is Piers Horner. I Certified Software and Tools program within GRI. I'll talk about that program a little bit shortly. But really what I'm aiming to do for the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes or so is talk a little bit about digital reporting and about the sort of tooling, as it were, for sustainability reporting as well. Why are these important? Well, hopefully the answer to that question is already entirely obvious. Probably obvious to you before this kind of conference, but from what Brigitte has outlined, what we know obviously about the development of sustainability reporting, it's only going in one direction in terms of requiring greater transparency, greater consistency, more organizations to actually report, and that being enshrined within regulations to an even higher extent, not just within Europe, of course, but across the world. So we know that there's going to be an ever-increasing requirement to report upon sustainability. We know that obviously if that is to be adopted on a mass scale, then we need the tools to be able to support that. And I think actually the question earlier about the sort of consistency, as it were, and you know, how we actually provide reporting on a consistent basis about economic impacts, for example, is one kind of illustration of that need. So there's obviously a lot of focus at the moment on how we enable reporting or mass adoption of reporting that allows for data and different aspects of sustainability reporting to be reported in a consistent way. And as I say, I think there are two major sort of branches of this conversation. The one is around digital reporting. And the other, which is of particular interest for GRI, is around tooling and the actual products that can help reporters to actually do their reports using GRI, using any other framework, but obviously our particular interest is around GRI. I'll say something first about digital reporting. I think, you know, most of the times when we're talking about digital reporting, what we're really talking about is the development and the use of taxonomies. And I'm sure that many people on this call, particularly if you're already involved in financial reporting, will be more than familiar with the concept of taxonomies. But in case anybody on the call is not familiar, the idea behind a taxonomy is that it develops a list of essentially kind of data concepts, as it were, that are important to sustainability reporting or any type of reporting. But these lists essentially provide a sort of framework for understanding the content of your reports, and can be encoded within a machine readable format. So the idea is that you can essentially digitally tag different parts of your report and identify those parts of your report with different aspects of reporting that are essential either to meeting regulations or to meeting specific interests of stakeholders, or indeed, you know, meeting the requirements of the standard that you're actually using. And the idea is that if you're able to tag your reports in this way in digital format, and that can be read by machine reading, as it were, then you can actually pull out that information across a large number of reports. You can compare that information quite easily. And the idea is also, of course, that you can actually link that back to supporting documents and supporting evidence in order to provide a sort of validation kind of route for the data that you're using. And of course, that's incredibly useful and supports the idea of the GRI mission, part which is about, of course, you know, improving that transparency and improving that kind of comparability between different reporters and reports within their sectors, as it were. The use of kind of taxonomies in future is obviously likely, particularly if sustainability reporting, or as sustainability reporting kind of meets the sort of same levels of requirements as financial reporting. As I said earlier, you know, there's going to be a need for taxonomies for sure, and this sort of discussion around taxonomies has been a live one within GRI for quite a long time. We actually started developing a taxonomy many years ago now. And in a sense, maybe we were actually a little too early to the game, because actually we did a lot of work on developing a taxonomy ourselves that was perhaps a bit too early for the market, and at the time didn't get a massive amount of adoption. So we've not got our own taxonomy at the moment within GRI. But it is an area, as I say, of active discussion within GRI as to whether one should be developed. I mean, obviously, you know, that conversation will continue, and we expect it to continue the next few years, particularly as I say, you know, the work with EFRAG and the adoption of the European sustainability standards, as that plays out. And then also as we see that kind of conversation, as it were, transferred to the global scale, as it were, through our engagement with ISSB. So there's much to come in that space. As I say, GRI doesn't have its own taxonomy at the moment, but it is something that we're definitely actively considering and looking towards. What we do instead, however, is focus on the tooling. This is really where the Certified Software and Tools program comes in, but it's a little bit broader even than that. So if we could just move on to the next slide, please, Brigitte. So the Certified Software and Tools program, again, is quite a sort of established program within GRI, but we haven't necessarily given it the same priority as other areas of development of GRI in the past. So we're now looking to grow this program really, and the sort of the concept behind Certified Software and Tools is to be able to support those organizations who are developing tools to include GRI content within those tools in order to make reporting easier for reporting organizations. And help them to do so, in fact. So it's part of it is about just making sure that where you have, for example, a software developer who's integrating the standards into a tool, that they're doing so in a way that is consistent with the standards and that, you know, accurately actually represents the standards. But we also obviously try and work with those partners in the CST program in order to try and improve their software as well. So it's really about sort of looking at the way in which GRI content is used within the platform and supporting those developers to actually kind of improve that as well. So on the one hand, the CST program is about sort of supporting those who wish to use GRI content within tools. On the other hand, actually, it's focused on reporters as well, because as I say, the aim of it is really to be able to support a list of tools that use GRI. And obviously having access to that list of tools is something that should be beneficial to reporters themselves, so that if you have, as a reporter, particular issues around data gathering or you know, the use of that data in decision making or in the production of reporting and all this kind of stuff, then you know, if you find a relevant or a partner within the CST program who performs that kind of function, as it were, then you can also be assured that GRI have checked that the standards being used within that tool are being used in the right way, as it were. And that's really what we are outlining here, as it were. Let's say the top bullets around how we enable software developers to receive permission to use GRI copyright protected content. This isn't something actually that GRI have been that focused on in terms of enforcing, as it were, the licensing of copyright protected content, but it is something that GRI are sort of looking to expand their reach on, as it were, over the coming years. And we can really, as I say, we work with those partners to make sure that the standards are being used in a consistent and accurate way. And you can tell whether or not a product has been reviewed by GRI in this way, as it were, through the use of the marks that you see down the bottom there, the software and tools partners, and the content use with permission marks as well. Just move to the next slide, please, Brigitte. Just to give you an idea really of who we are currently working with. There's a whole range of different companies on there. And sort of speaking to your point a little bit earlier, Ivry, about startups, we actually work with a huge variety of different companies to, as I say, support, as it were, the development of tools. So you've got NASDAQ up there, for example. We have, you know, conversations with other big organizations at the moment, but actually we equally support startups, and the startups, we actually have a rather large proportion of startups who are applying for the program at the moment. And obviously, you know, that's where we see potentially a really big impact for GRI, because actually it's often within the startup community that you really sort of, you know, get your kind of your next shift in terms of a tool that is particularly important, or the disruption of the actual kind of reporting process, as it were, in a way that really helps people moving forward. So, you know, we see startups in particular as being a really important kind of area of partnership for the CST program as well. The list at the moment is around 40 CST partners, but as I say, this is an area of GRI that we really want to be able to grow to enable the widest possible variety of tools to be made available to reporters and make sure that that can support reporters in the best way possible. Just move on to the next slide, please, Brigitte. So here we have, this is a slightly confusing slide in as much as the percentages don't add up to 100%, but what we're trying to outline here is of our current partners, what kind of functionality the tools that we've certified so far actually provide. And tools can obviously provide a number of different functions, which is why the percentages on the right there don't add up to 100%. But you can see, you know, very clearly there, for example, the data gathering and analysis. The majority of the tools that we've been certifying so far are intended to support data gathering and analysis. And of course, that's a really key area of or challenge for reporters, particularly new reporters, but obviously, you know, even established reporters have huge challenges in terms of getting the right data, validating that data, and then pulling it together in the right way. So as I say, you know, that's sort of reflecting a particular area of need, obviously, that is perceived in the market. And I think actually, I do have some more slides after this, Brigitte, but I think these are more about process, so I won't necessarily go on to these at the moment. I'll just leave it kind of open for any questions if people do have questions about the process of CST as well. So really that's mostly what I wanted to say. I mean, keep it brief, and hopefully that means we've got some time for some good questions. You know, we do at GRI recognize the importance of digital reporting, the use of taxonomies. We are not there as an organization yet, or we do not believe yet that it's quite right for GRI to have its own taxonomy, as it were, but we are continuing to discuss that internally. And actually, for where we are at the moment, where the sustainability reporting landscape is at the moment, we believe that actually there's a much bigger impact for us if we focus on tooling at the moment and really supporting organizations to be able to use GRI content in digital tools and support enough organizations that we can provide, or we can, you know, that provides a very wide range of tools for reporters at all stages of their maturity, to be able to enable them to report in a good and consistent kind of manner with the GRI standards. So that's all I wanted to say. I hope that's of interest, and very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Pierre, for the interesting presentation. We have a few questions, but let me ask you, a few years ago, when we went to the GRI conference in Amsterdam before the COVID, I think it was exactly before the launching of the previous report, the SRS, the main topic in most of the panels were future automatic reporting, digital reporting, from the chimney to the report. It was like a slogan that, to what extent you see that it's really happening now? Because in the last 5 years or 6 years since the conference, we hear a lot of talking about it, many startups, but you don't always see the big corporation really use blockchain, machine learning, etc. How do you see it, the ecosystem is moving?
Yeah, but I think this is just this is really a sort of function of maturity at the moment, right? Because as you say, there are many initiatives out there that are looking at digital reporting in terms of, say, sort of development of consistent sort of taxonomies. But, as you say, there are some disruptive kind of technologies such as blockchain. And certainly, actually, we have a number of companies who we've worked with already through CST who are using, for example, blockchain, particularly for data validation and providing a very clear route of kind of accountability, as it were, for the stuff that they're reporting. We're not in a phase where I think we're moving into mass adoption of that, but I mean, I think that my own view is that this will move pretty quickly over the next few years. As soon as we, in a sense, of course, the adoption of the European reporting standards, are going to be really kind of, they're really going to drive that market, I think. Because you are going to come right up against, some of those practical issues of reporting, and people are going to have to develop and scale those kind of tools very, very quickly. Now, we at GRI are not in a position to be able to do that, as it were, of course, because, we're a small organization. We have limited capacity ourselves to develop our own tools. And that's why it's really important for us that we do engage with as broad a suite of kind of organizations that are working in this space as possible, so that as that sector does kind of develop very quickly, we can be embedded within it, and we can make sure that actually it enables everybody to use the GRI standards as easily as possible. And as Brigitte said earlier on, that really is probably the best basis for people to be preparing for not only the European reporting standards, but more generally the future and evolution, as it were, of the reporting landscape and the use of standards internationally as well. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. It's really dynamic and very interesting to kind of watch, and we want to be able to respond to it as much as possible, basically.
Yeah, we have tomorrow a big conference in Israel on climate tech. 500 companies are executing climate tech solutions. Yeah. Not all of them, of course, reporting, so it will be nice to follow up. Liad, our good friend from Strauss, a big food company, asked, do you have some documents accumulating the best practices of the digital reporting? Anything that they can learn?
Well, at the moment, no. And again, I think that this sort of really reflects the maturity of the field, as it were. As I say, our program is still very young. I don't know, Brigitte, whether this is a topic that has been discussed within the community, but actually, these are some of the topics where actually within our sort of within the ecosystem of GRI, it's important that we continue to monitor, that we do, provide, as it were, as you say, best examples or best practice examples of different types of reporting. Yeah, so it's one to stay in contact with, I would say, and we can sort of learn together, as it were, how this all kind of evolves. I don't know, Brigitte, have this been discussed at all within the community yet, or not? Was mostly, I imagine, focused on actually the sort of the transition to the new universal standards and issues relating to that, I guess, at the moment, right?
Yes, so within the GRI community, we have an online program, Reporting in Practice, which leads organizations through from preparing the report to the publication, and we address different topics like how to do materiality assessment and how to report on human rights and how to present information, but these are only for community members, and not all organizations in the audience are community members, or so.
They will be soon. I'm sure. Thank you. We have another question. People say that, and they're right, that it takes a lot of energy to create a report. Do you have any more platforms that you can help in communicating and distributing the report after it is published? You used to have one that you can upload to the GRI website. is it still on? And also if you have other recommendation to help companies to spread around the final reports.
Yeah, so we don't have any CST partners at the moment who specifically focus on the distribution, as it were, of reports and sort of enabling, you know, reports to be kind of seen by the highest number of stakeholders. We don't have that. However, I think it's a really interesting idea, because obviously the reach of reporting is a really fundamental part of the principles of producing a GRI report. So that's definitely, that's definitely something we would love to be able to work and partner with an organization in order to, you know, look at a tool that would help in that process, as it were, or support in that process a little bit. Yeah, so I'm afraid not at present, but something we would love to be able to actually, say, have a CST partner with whom we could have a tool that would actually support that.
Excellent. Any more
also,
questions?
I think, if I may interrupt, I think you referred to the former collection of reports that were available on GRI's website, but now currently we don't have that. Information were incomplete, and GRI decided to not to share the reports anymore with organizations. But of course, sustainability reports are public for organization, so you can look at the reports on the organization's own website and search for information. We also have a member directory that can be found on the GRI website, so you can look at which organizations do we have closer contact to, so who are the community members of GRI, or who are the certified training partners and the certified software and tool partners. So you will find those organizations in our member directory, and then you can also look at, and under the community members' names, you will find their recent reports if they share it with GRI within the member directory. So I would recommend to look at it.
Another question that comes up is, to what extent you have a plan to emphasize the positive impact or negative impact of the products of companies? Because today, it's not easy. Sometimes you can have a great report, but of a company that has negative impact in many ways. I know that also Maala, Momo can refer to it. It also have this challenge. And let's talk about the positive side. To what extent, impact companies or really positive product companies can quantify or can use the platform of the GRI reporting in order to increase the positive impact on the environment or on the society of the product and services.
Brigitte, do you want to take that, or shall I have a go? Okay, so I think if I understand the question correctly,
sorry, I was muted, so it's up to you.
Okay, I'll give it a go. If I understand the question correctly, is it kind of how can we really sort of celebrate, in a sense, those reporters who actually do a really good job, as it were, of reporting? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm talking mainly about the different. You can be a very good company reporting transparently, but the products still can be, I don't want to go into names, but you can go to a product that does harm to the environment or does harm to the society. And usually when you speak about the transparency of the company, you don't always quantify the other than the materiality analysis, you don't always have the tools to fully quantify the impact.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a great question. It's a very thorny problem, obviously, and I don't know whether Laura will have some views of her own on this, as it were. But I mean, in terms of the reporting using the standards themselves, of course, we are encouraging transparency. And, we would, in a sense, on the one hand, see it as a positive sign if, for example, there's an organization that is involved in, let's say, a controversial sector, as it were, that we know is actually has quite a number of negative impacts on any of the components of ESG, for them to be reporting, and for them to be reporting in an honest and truthful way about it. That is in itself something to be celebrated. Now, how that then reflects on what their actual impact is another matter. But of course, one of the intentions of having the GRI reporting and of having that due diligence kind of, really wrapped into the fundaments of the actual universal standards themselves is for companies themselves to show that they care about what they're doing and that they have processes in place in order to try and mitigate the impacts that they do have. So, we don't, it's kind of one of those funny things where, we want to provide the framework for companies to be as honest about their impacts as possible. And it's really then up to the companies themselves to actually report according to that framework, and indeed for the stakeholders in those companies to hold those companies accountable for what they are reporting and for the progress that they make. And all of that really needs to be captured within the report itself. It's not something that we as GRI cast judgment on, again, because obviously we are independent standard setters, and that's really crucial for us. So we don't endorse and we don't kind of but it's really essential that we provide that framework and then it's used in the right way, as it were. I don't know, Laura, did you want to add anything to that?
I think you said it very well, Piers. And I think there's a difference between being transparent and applying the GRI standards correctly and then the impacts that companies are having. I think the ultimate goal, of course, is that transparency would lead companies to improve their practices and to have a positive impact. But it is a journey that companies are going through, and the GRI standards are hopefully a tool to help companies to do that.
I think a case in point is actually the mining standard, right, Laura, in the sense that, there's perhaps one of the challenges that we've had in thinking about sector standards and releasing them is that we could be, in a sense, criticized for, providing a means for certain sectors to actually report on actual products that have a high impact upon the environment. But actually, it's really important that we engage with those sectors and we give them, as it were, a framework for them to be, as I said, honest in their reporting, so to speak. So it's a challenge for sure, but we favor sort of being as broad as possible and being as open as possible in the framework that we provide.
Mm-hmm. And also just a last thought on this. So when it comes to the GRI standards, that's why we emphasize that organizations should apply the reporting principles. We talked a lot about reporting principles, and we have, for example, the balance principle, which exactly states that organizations need to report also on positive and the negative impact. So to give a full picture of their impacts. So it's really a good advice to organizations to go through all reporting principles before they start reporting and to try to comply with all of them.
Thank you very much. Maybe a last question from the chat. There is a question, either is a minimum a number of indicators to disclose in the, let's say, in the minimum framework in a reference the report.
I can answer that.
Yes.
Do you mean in order to report in accordance or with reference to the GRI standards?
In accordance.
In accordance. So when reporting in accordance with the standards, there are a number of disclosures that all companies need to report, and those you can find in the universal standards. So there are 30 disclosures, which are general about the company itself, its practices, its activities, employees, policies, etc. All companies reporting in accordance need to report those 30 disclosures, and then companies need to identify their material topics. And the number of topics can depend depending on the company and the impacts that they have identified. But once they have identified their material topics, they need to report the process that they've gone through to determine those topics, the list of material topics they have identified, and then how they manage each of those material topics. And those disclosures on material topics are in GRI 3, which is our third universal standard. And then for each material topic, the topic standards may provide additional disclosures to report on those topics. And out of those, companies only need to do the disclosures that are relevant to them based on the impacts that they have identified. We do have an introduction, a short introduction to the standard on our website, which we can link to, which provides more information. And we, of course, have our academy courses, which go into a lot of detail into how to actually apply the new universal standards. So that's when it comes to reporting in accordance. And if a company reports with reference to the GRI standards, there's no minimum number of disclosures that need to be reported.
Excellent. I think that we are running out of time. So before I sum up, first of all, regarding the training, I really hope that we can offer the Israeli companies like maybe a very intuitive online training with you, or even in person. I think that for many years there was not a real in-person program for training here. Momo, do you want to say something before we finalize?
Just thank you, and I would note on the question on the sort of the communicating the reports. I'll go back to my previous to what I said at the beginning. I think more and more the question is not necessarily about people who would read the report once it's published. It's more about the data being available. And in that case, I'll say again that I think the most important thing is to make sure that the data is actually material and at the same time enables you to compare with other relevant sort of data or entities. But with that, thank you. It was very illuminating, and happy Hebrew New Year. Thank you, Ivry.
Thank you. By the way, one of the changes in the new standard, if I remember correctly, is that you advise to publish it together with the financial report, which the outcome is to publish it sooner in the year, in the calendar year. And it's a big challenge for the company. I think one of the solutions will go to digital reporting, but we still have companies who published every 2 years in October or November of the next year, which some of the data and the material issues that are disclosed are a bit obsolete, a bit not less relevant when it's two years later. So I think that the ecosystem will find a good way to balance between the different needs of investors and the reporters themselves. I really want to thank on behalf of all of us for the GRI team. I hope to see you soon in person in Tel Aviv, and not and we'll find the right time and right way. You have an open invitation. I'm sure it will be a very successful event. If you will come to give a workshop or a speech here. It's a nice city, by the way. Maybe not like Amsterdam, maybe more. I want to raise a virtual toast for the new year, that we all have good things and healthy and happiness. And thank the participant. And thank you, Brigitta, for being our main partner for this event. It was really instrumental.
Thank you very much, Ivry, also for organizing this event. I apologize for this technical difficulties, but I hope everyone could see the slides well. And we'll share the recording, I think, after the webinar.
Great. So,
slides.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Brigitta. And let's have a good year next year. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye for now.